Welcome everyone, and it is a good night. We want to thank you for joining us.
Hold on.
We want to say, hold on.
Did you start this term?
Mm-hmm.
Are you recording it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are we ready? Get set, and we're about to go. All right, again, one more time, we'd like to say welcome to our show. Tonight, it's going to be something that's a little taboo. Actually, it's a lot taboo. We're going to be dealing with the subject of the taboo. Now, first of all, let's define what taboo actually stands for. Our topic tonight is the definition of taboo, what happens when certain taboos are broken, and what happens when we deal with children, and whether to have or have not taboos to pass on to children. The word taboo apparently comes from the Polynesian, and I think in Western civilization, the first we've come across it was through Herman Melville, American writer from New England, from the Polynesian islands. And what they discussed there was certain things that they told their children, they told their social groups not to do something or to refrain from doing something, hence the word taboo. We in all the different cultures have our own taboos. Now, sometimes it was for medical reasons, for health reasons. We know that at some point there has been taboos for procreation. Many of these taboos have been broken throughout the years. Now, certain religions have taboos, and it gets to the point where what happens when the structure that keeps us together through the taboos starts to break. And that's what I like to discuss. Again, what was a taboo? Well, eating meat on a Friday was a taboo for Catholics. That's how I was raised. I always thought it was because of the fishermen division. They had a big lobby with the Pope in Rome. We need to sell more fish. Hey, come on, Angelo, get the fish sell every Friday. I don't know.
Michael,
now,
what's the difference between taboo and sense of morality or right and wrong?
Well, I think they tried to impose a morality through the taboo. Now, incest is a taboo. Now, is there a sense of morality involved in that? I would say yes. But it's also a question of procreation. What happens if you marry your sister, a male marries, or a cousin? We know that eventually there will be an impairment. There will be a mix-up of the genes, and we would have problems with the children and their children and so on and so forth. So that is a taboo, which is not only based on morality, but it's based on, you want to call it health, you want to call it medical, whatever reason. So there are certain taboos that have not been broken, and for good reason. But others have. Now, at one time, there was a taboo for us to not go to church on Sundays. There was a taboo for us to dress appropriately. No male, strike that, no female could ever be seen in dungarees outside in the streets of New York City. It was uncalled for. You had to dress up.
So what's the difference between social norms and taboo?
The taboo is created at a time when there's a basis for it, and a lot of us, the people who come after the taboo is created, don't understand why it was created in the first place. My understanding that Orthodox Jews don't eat swine. They don't eat pork. At one time, there were so many diseases that came from the swine that someone who was an authority for medical reasons said, no swine whatsoever, no touching of the pork, no eating of it. And there was a good, just reason for it.
Today, don't we have too many taboos in our society?
It depends on what the individual taboo might be. Should there be a taboo against drugs? There had been. It was relaxed in the 60s. And today we...
A taboo or a law?
Both. I mean, there's a law against sodomy in Georgia.
What's the relationship between laws and taboos?
I think the laws are based on some of the taboos. They became part of what is the old common law. In my background, we studied that through American legal system. A lot of it has to do with the Old English law, and it was based on common sense. What the common sense was at a given time in history. We found out later that, it's not common sense for the male to beat the wife only 3 times a week with a certain hickory stick. That was on the Pennsylvania books for how many years, I can't tell you. But it was part of our revolution. You were permitted, the male was permitted to beat the wife with a certain hickory stick 3 times a week. That stayed on the books, I think, all the way up until women got the right to vote. Now, we have something called the Blue Law in Pennsylvania. What does that mean? Many bars have to close on Sunday in Pennsylvania. It's the Blue Laws, which is the taboo. It, I believe, came out of Prohibition. Prohibition was to do away with all alcohol for the masses. The people who thought it was a good idea to get rid of alcohol thought that men were drinking too much and losing all their money at the bars. So they passed the law saying, thou shalt have no alcohol at all. Of course, we had the speakeasy growing. My father worked in a speakeasy. Now, talking about drugs, now, I mentioned to you,
One
Karen,
of our viewers says the taboo against drugs didn't help.
The taboo against drugs have been with us for many years. What I found out was, I always thought, it was the 60s that broke this taboo. Smoking the grass, doing LSD, really just smacking the taboo in its face and saying, up yours, I'm going to turn on, tune in, and drop out. Well, my father, when he worked in a speakeasy, he had opium being dispensed. My Lord, talk about breaking the taboo. Now, he was from Greece, from close to the Middle East, where that opium, where that type of taboo had been broken by certain types of people. Now, today, what taboo? We're going to get to the topic of how do you pass on a taboo to your children when you've broken it? How do you say to your child, thou shalt not smoke grass? And can you say it and be a hypocrite because you've done it when you were his age? I don't know.
Well, isn't the point of a taboo is that it's not an individual trying to pass, to say this is right and this is wrong, you can do this, you can't do that. It's social. It has to do with societal pressure. We've talked before on the show about how environment influences us. So if there's a strong prohibition within the society at large, I think it's very easy to confuse all of these things. Like,
you're right, Karen. Taboos were a necessary evil. They kept most people in what we want to call line, if you want to say that. It prevented us from crossing a line where we, as a group, believed we should not cross. We should not have sex among a certain group. We shouldn't have sex with animals. We shouldn't have sex with children. These are taboos that we still keep in place. Now, at one time, it was a taboo not to have sex outside of your own religion. You shouldn't even have any relationship with someone who's not of the same race. And these were taboos. If you were Catholic, you couldn't have any relations with a Protestant. If you were Jewish, you would be forbidden to have any relations with someone of the Islamic faith, and so on and so forth. These were taboos. They were softened. They were gently broken. But there was a reason for some of these taboos, and people had depended on them.
What I'm interested in, and what some of our viewers are saying, why do we keep making taboos if nobody wants to follow them, is not how they were instilled, which kind of makes sense. You're saying that a lot of this was for other reasons that had to do with the health of our species, or were related somehow to moral or economic code.
That's true.
But why are you trying to say that they've seemed to be broken or let up upon in the last couple of years?
I think they've been loosened, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the loosening of the taboos and what does it mean for our generation. What does it mean for the outcome of our society? And